As we get older, we learn to appreciate, even love, what's different and unique. But that can be hard when you're a kid and all you want to do is fit in. We're not all born the same, and for some it can mean our brain functions differently. It's something we should celebrate.
Lights, camera, action.
These 4 children are among an increasing number being diagnosed across Australia with variations in brain development.
Lights, camera, action.
It's what's now described as being neurodivergent. The term refers to the diversity of the human brain. The opposite is neurotypical.
It describes someone whose brain works differently, not defectively.
Professor Tony Attwood is a world-leading expert in one area of neurodivergence, autism. Others include attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, dyslexia, Tourette syndrome, even OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder.
Everyone has talents in some ways, but there are certain areas that neurodiversity will take to a level of excellence. So in other words, we need neurodiverse people because they're the original thinkers. They're the individuals that solve problems that no one can find answers to.
Up to 20% of Australians may be neurodivergent. Many don't even know it. It's considered a hidden disability. And tonight, these kids and their parents are revealing why we all need to learn more about it.
I'm not my ADHD, I'm Ivy, and my ADHD is a part of me, but that's not who I am. So I have ADHD and it influences my life, but I'm not just the kid with ADHD.
12-year-old Ivy is one incredible kid.
Tell me, what are the biggest challenges for you?
A really big challenge for me is focusing, and another one is hyperfixating. So I would just do something over and over again and I will not be happy if I'm told to stop.
Is this your superpower? Is this your gift, do you think?
In some places, like I'm a really good drawer. Like I'm good at drawing, I have good hand-eye coordination, and I'm like pretty smart academically, but good golly, am I not good at sport? Like, I can't do it.
Rebecca is Ivy's mum. Her husband also has ADHD.
What's it like being the parent of a neurodivergent child?
It is simultaneously challenging and exciting and frustrating and all good and bad things into one.
School presents many challenges for a neurodivergent child.
Ivy has had quite a number of issues with bullying this year, to the point where I did step in and try to get some better structure at school, some better support.
They had just decided that they didn't really like me anymore, and they would come up to me and make up stuff. It was really hard for me to stop being friends with them, but you have to cut off toxic people when they don't have your best interest at heart.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
12-year-old Jaden is autistic and says some kids tease him about that.
People always bring it up around me when I'm doing something. They always bring it up just to get one up over me and stuff. Everyone does it all the time.
How does that make you feel?
I feel like I don't belong sometimes.
Jaden is highly intelligent, but also gets in trouble at school.
I can smash through my work really quickly, do all my work. It's just, once I do it, when the teacher's asking questions, I forget to put up my hand all the time. I'm always calling out, always getting in trouble for that, always getting in trouble for talking to other kids that are trying to learn.
What do you find the hardest about trying to fit into school?
I'm always getting in trouble with my friends because I don't get it. They always like making up new games and I don't get it. I don't follow the rules. And sometimes because of my autism I can get controlling.
Professor Linda Graham is the Director of Inclusive Education at the Queensland University of Technology.
Being around and fitting in to a world that is created by and filled with neurotypical people is exhausting and really, really hard work.
A Senate inquiry into school refusal found almost 3/4 of students struggling to attend had a neurodevelopmental disability. Professor Graham says many neurodivergent students are unfairly perceived as troublemakers.
These kids are actually working really, really hard all day, every day, throughout school, and they get in trouble for not making an effort, for not listening, for not doing their work, for not following instructions.
In general, how do you feel teachers treat neurodivergent kids?
I do feel that there is a little bit of a culture of assuming that the neurodiverse child is a naughty child or at fault.
Sky is Jaden's mum, who's also recently discovered she has ADHD. Diagnosing Jaden began with a brutal paediatrician's appointment.
According to her, I was a neglectful mother, and that was heartbreaking. I was basically at the end of my tether. We needed help.
It took several years for his autism diagnosis, mother and son supporting each other through every hurdle. Jaden's journey has been difficult. Sky says he was kicked out of daycare aged 4.
We looked at starting school early because he's very academically gifted, but unfortunately he decided it was a good idea to do a somersault and stand on his head during the interview meeting with the deputy. So we were told, no, we can't start early because we've got to work on some social skills.
Often neurodivergent children struggle with change. This year, Jaden has had a new principal and new teachers who have applied some different methods to his behaviour.
Do punishments work for kids like Jaden?
Yes, he needs some sort of punishment, but he can't cope with the punishments that most normal students could. We might have to do it over a period of days. He might have to have the option of, well, no, I'm not up to doing my detention today, but I'll do it tomorrow.
How do you think teachers handle the juggle of neurodivergent kids in traditional classes?
Look, in all honesty, I think they're absolutely amazing. As much as I love my dear son here, I could not imagine trying to teach him with 30 kids in the room.
11-year-old Ruby has ADHD and autism and finds managing friendships at school the hardest.
Walking into school, I just feel like everyone is staring into my soul, just waiting for me to make the next big decision, next big mistake, and walking in there with ADHD is just, well, it's even hard to tell my own friends the truth sometimes.
Ruby's mum Mel says the diagnosis process was hard.
So it was a long, isolating process where you felt like you were the only person with a child who was going through this process.
How did you first know that Ruby was neurodivergent?
We sort of always had a bit of a feeling that something different was going on with Rubes. She used to pull her belly button and do the fidgeting and chew her lip and all these things.
Mel says it can be difficult to start the conversation about whether your child is neurodivergent.
You may not be wanting to recognise it, but it is a conversation which does need to be had, and the earlier that you have it and recognise what's going on, the better it is for your kids.
All of these people hope they can break down stereotypes about neurodivergence.
For people who don't know much about people like you, what's the one thing you'd like to tell them?
Well, if they didn't know anything about us, I'd have to be honest. I know it might be a bit rude, but I'd say stop living under a rock all your life. Open up. There are other people with different brains, made differently. It's not just all you. Look at others. Like, stop living under a rock.
11-year-old Lincoln also has ADHD and autism.
So I find ADHD and autism mostly a superpower. But there are bad bits about it. People expect me to just be normal, even though I'm not normal. I'm different.
School life for Lincoln has been very hard.
If I was sad, I would be made fun of. If I was angry, I would be made fun of. If I was scared, I would be made fun of. So it was very hard for me because I always had the expectation that I just had to have no emotion, just instead of being who I want to be.
In recent months, Lincoln's mum Paula has started homeschooling her son instead.
It got to a point where Link he couldn't even leave, like he actually we could not get him to leave the house in the morning. He was so paralysed with anxiety and fear about going to school.
And what are the changes that you've seen in him since homeschooling began?
Look at him. He is glorious, colourful, beautiful, outgoing boy.
A record 40,000 children are now being homeschooled, almost doubling the number in 5 years. It's a juggle for Lincoln's family, with both parents and one grandparent helping out, removing the most painful challenge of traditional school.
It's the other kids that don't understand what neurodivergence is. And so they just see a kid that's a little bit different and maybe a little bit quirky. Quirky's our favourite word. And they find that and they pick on that and they don't realise that what they're doing is actually really damaging.
This is a very common feeling for neurodivergent families. Ivy's mum, Rebecca, explains the sad advice she's given her daughter.
She needed to be dull and she needed to not attract too much attention because she had had 2 terms of people just fixating on her and doing really mean, nasty things to her. So I said, you need to get back in your box, mate, and you can be as wild as you want at home, but at school you need to be grey.
It's stories like these that break the heart of Professor Tony Attwood.
All the problems that I face as a clinician, it's not autism, it's the damage done by toxic peers. And that's the part I'm concerned about. The autistic ADHD kid is considered different. And if somebody's different, it's free game to bully and tease them. And that is terribly destructive.
Acclaimed author Madonna King has joined forces with Rebecca Sparrow, writing a new book to help better understand children who are out of the box.
We need to be kinder. Neurotypical people need to be kinder. And often it is a neurotypical parent who will say, look, I don't think we'll invite little Patrick because he's a little bit different from you, or I think he's a little bit naughty, I think he's a bad influence, let's not invite him. That has got to stop.
She's consulted 1,300 Aussie families living with neurodivergence and 600 teachers juggling classroom life as rates continue to rise.
So if the biggest problem is a social problem, isn't that on all of us? Teachers, parents, policymakers, all of us to sit down and work out how we can actually make friendship easier for so many kids who have so much to give.
And boy, don't these kids have so much to give.
What are your dreams for the future?
Ever since I was a kid, I've always wanted to study medicine. Ever since I was 1 or something, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I have so many dreams. So I love theatre. That's one of my biggest hobbies. So I really want to be an actor, like an actress. That's one of my biggest dreams.
To study space, so astronomy.
Wow.
I think it's really cool. Galaxies and stars.
I strongly suspect that the greatest advances in science and art are made by neurodivergent individuals. That's why we need them, because they're different. Life would be very boring without them.
Is there anything anyone's burning to want to tell me that we haven't mentioned? Ruby, come down here to, we come down to Ruby.
I like avocado socks.
Thank you, Ruby.
I've been dying to say that.
They are good socks, Dan, and what an amazing group of people. That new book, Out of the Box, will be available from tomorrow.